What is up, everyone? Brandon First, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. Welcome into the NFL Weekly, the Super Bowl preview edition here on the network. Obviously, going to break down the big game coming up between the Kansas City Chiefs and my Philadelphia Eagles. Unfortunately, due to a little bit of a scheduling conflict, it'll just be myself on the podcast today, but we will have Raider Jim and Coach back later this season. So be able to break it down with them next week, hopefully. But for now, you're stuck with just me, but we want to make sure that you are ready for Sunday. Of course, Super Bowl Sunday is just a day away as I am recording here on Saturday morning. The Kansas City Chiefs, Philadelphia Eagles, the 2-1 seeds, the two best teams in their respective conferences. And we are here. We are now about 24 hours away from the big game. All the talk can stop. We'll get to obviously the history of this game, the prop bets, and of course the game pick. Not a very long pod today, obviously, but let's start with the main thing, kind of the advantage. Who has the advantage when Kansas City has the ball? Who has the advantage when the Eagles have the ball? And the overall coaching advantage, because I do think in a big game like this, it is a big turning point for that. So without further ado, let's dive into that, starting with the Chiefs and of course Patrick Mahomes. All eyes on Mahomes and Kelsey and Isaiah Pacheco, who that fearsome threesome, if you will, at the moment. What's going to happen when Kansas City has the ball? Myself personally, Kansas City's going to put points up. I think they're going to be around 21 to 28 points, probably into the 30s as well. Wouldn't be ideal for the Eagles if they are in the 30s, but we shall see how that goes. I think Kansas City, outside of the quarterback and tight end position, anywhere on the field, the Eagles have the advantage, but they do have the better quarterback. They may have the best quarterback ever. That's up for debate. But as of right now, active quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes is the benchmark. He is the guy. He won MVP earlier this week. And you could say maybe if Jalen Hurts doesn't get hurt, we don't maybe Jalen Hurts wins that award. Well, not the case, but I will say it's been a very long time since a MVP has won the Super Bowl. So hopefully that works for the Eagles in that favor. But when the Chiefs do have the ball, I think Mahomes is going to get his yardage. I think Kelsey is going to do what he does. But I think the other factors, Juju and some of the other guys, I don't know if they have enough to really combat what the Eagles can do to Patrick Mahomes and an offensive line that is probably facing their stiffest test all year, with the best defensive line in football, 70 sacks this year for the Eagles. I expect the Eagles to be in Mahomes' face. And of course, then we get back to the health and the stability of Patrick Mahomes' ankle. I think he looked okay against Cincinnati, got better as the game progressed. He's had 2 weeks to kind of get better. I don't think it will be a factor, but I do think the fact that the Eagles are going to be in his face more often than not, that will be a big factor to maybe change how he goes about things. I would say the Eagles have the advantage because that defense is so good, but my goodness, Patrick Mahomes may be better. I think Kansas City does have the advantage when they're on offense. Patrick Mahomes is a transcendent quarterback. He can make things happen. That seems like every game he's doing video game like stuff, and he has found Travis Kelsey. He's maybe the best tight end in all of football. Those two can really complicate things, but would not be surprised to see the Eagles also keep at least one of them in check in this one. So give the advantage to the Chiefs. Once again, mainly advantage Patrick Mahomes. But moving to the other side where you have the Philadelphia Eagles going up against the Kansas City Chief defense, this one is a little more straightforward for me. Look, you got two rookie cornerbacks going up against A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. That's been something that's been talked about and worked on for the last 2 weeks for this Eagles, and especially in that wide receiver room. They want to take advantage of the inexperience and let's face it, the Eagles are better offensively pretty much everywhere on the board than the Kansas City Chiefs, I expect the Eagles to maybe not have their way fully. You'll see a punt or two. I think some early nerves may break into this. But if the Eagles do what they've done all year, I think they get the job done and put up 30 to 35 points against a Kansas City defense that has done enough to get here, but it will be a big hindrance for them on Sunday. So in that situation, give the advantage to the Philadelphia Eagles when they are on offense going up against the Kansas City defense. And finally, the coaching side of things. Look, Andy Reid is right now the second best second best coach of this generation. Obviously, Belichick has that number one, but Andy Reid is right there. He's the only coach to take two different teams to championship games 4 out of 5 years. He's done that, of course, ironically, with the Philadelphia Eagles in the early 2000s, and now what he's doing with the Kansas City Chiefs. It really is incredible to see what Andy Reid has done. As an Eagles fan, I obviously want him to lose on Sunday. There's no doubt about it. I'm pulling for my birds 100%. But the one positive, if for whatever reason the Chiefs do get the job done, to see Andy Reid get another Super Bowl, which he so richly deserves. Just hopefully not this year. He is a fantastic coach, and for Nick Sirianni, he is an up and coming coach. He's obviously year 3 with the team, year 2 with the team. Obviously, last year out in the wild card round. This year, number 1 seed all the way into the Super Bowl. We'll see how it goes, but there's nothing Nick Sirianni could have done in these last 2 years that could have got him onto the level of Andy Reid. Let's be honest, Andy Reid is essentially, the second best coach of this generation. So you have to give the advantage to Andy Reid, but of course, will that fully be enough? I do expect it to be something to keep an eye on, but I don't think it's the end all be all for the Kansas City Chiefs going up against the Philadelphia Eagles. Moving on to some kind of the history that we're going to see in the Super Bowl. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about the Kelce brothers, Jason and Travis. First pair of brothers to play in a Super Bowl. Donna Kelce, the mom of the Kelce brothers, obviously very, very excited for this. She's already got her half and half jersey. I think it's fantastic. She knows that one of her sons is going to essentially be on top of the world. The flip side of that is the other son will be essentially devastated. But the one good thing is both of these men do already have Super Bowl rings. I don't think it will hurt any less for the loser in this one. And the bragging rights obviously will go to the winning brother here. But I really do think it's special to see these two guys and what they've done. Now, Travis is a fantastic tight end, and I can't speak too much to his background because I'll be honest, I haven't really followed the Chiefs in that capacity in quite some time. But, Jason for me is the post Kevin Mawai best center of the generation. He is the guy who goes out. He's Mr. Consistency. He doesn't make mistakes, and he plays, I believe, one of the hardest positions in all of football. Offensive line is hard enough. Well, try being a center where essentially you're snapping a ball with sometimes a 300-pound lineman right on your nose, getting ready to run through you. Most people would probably not even sign up for it. And if they did sign up for it, they wouldn't be very good at it. Well, Jason Kelce did both of those things, except for the fact he is very, very good at it. First ballot Hall of Famer in my book. This was a kid who was undrafted out of Cincinnati. He essentially was playing tight end like his brother, things like that, trying to find a spot. He is a generational talent. And for the Eagles, I don't expect after Jason is done, I don't expect anyone to ever wear 62. That number needs to be retired. There needs to be a statue for him. He is an absolute legend. I'm just very excited to see the Kelce brothers go at it, obviously, both on offense, so you won't see a matchup technically on the field, but they will find each other regardless of how the game ends. To give each other some love. Someone's going to have to be picked up for a few seconds. And then the other, of course, will have to, go celebrate and be on top of the world. It's a bit of an awkward situation, but I think a really special occasion when we do look back on it. It's going to be raw for a few weeks, maybe in a few months for the loser. But when we look back on it, it's something they can put their badge of honor. The Watt brothers are definitely up there in terms of football royalty, but I think the Kelsey brothers now, because they're both pretty much the best at their position, and of course now playing in the biggest game together, have to be considered the top family of football. On the other side of history, if you will, we have finally gotten our first matchup of two black starting quarterbacks. Of course, Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes. I think this is great for the sport. I think we've seen the last, 10, 15 years, the prevalence of black starting quarterbacks in this league. Obviously, I think it kind of started, Michael Vick, Randall Cunningham going back then, but it was kind of just him, and I will, of course, can't forget about those guys there. But to see Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes both kind of reach the zenith and the mountaintop of their professions, to see them go at it, I think it's great, but I don't think it's a storyline that will affect the game. I think these guys are very proud that they are the first two black quarterbacks to start. But when the game starts, it's not about that. It's about winning the football game, period, for your brothers, for your teammates, for your coaches, for your family who sacrificed so much. It's a great lead up, and I think it's a great story for us to digest, but I don't believe it has any bearing on the game. Very similar to kind of the Kelsey situation, the Kelsey history. But, Jalen Hurts, I can't speak enough about Jalen Hurts. Patrick Mahomes, he has been a fantastic quarterback at Texas Tech, and obviously was drafted for the Chiefs, sat behind Alex Smith for a year, and really has taken off immediately. It's very, very, a very different story for Jalen Hurts. This was a kid who was at Alabama. He was 26-2 as a starter, heading to the national championship game. He gets benched for Tua. Tua goes out, does what he does. He actually beats Jalen Hurts out the next year for the starting job. Jalen Hurts doesn't transfer. He says, I want to graduate at Alabama. And he's told, okay, you need to get better in the pocket. And that's what he does. Fast forward to that season's SEC championship game. Jalen Hurts replaces Tua, goes out, gets a comeback victory, leads Alabama to an SEC championship, then graduates from Alabama, does what he wanted to do, and then transfers to Oklahoma for one final year as he got that graduate eligibility. He goes to goes to Oklahoma, puts on an absolute show, is a Heisman finalist, and then is doubted when he's drafted in the second round by a lot of people, including myself. I apologize to both Howie Roseman, Jalen Hurts, a lot of guys. I doubted Jalen Hurts, and I doubted the decision behind drafting Jalen Hurts. I didn't think he could be an NFL quarterback, and I certainly didn't think he could be a quarterback leading a team to an NFL. But you know what? I've never been so happy to be wrong. Actually, it's the second most happy I've ever been to be wrong, considering when I said Peter Seidler bought the Padres, it wasn't going to change anything. I was very wrong on that, and I'm very happy about that. But for Jalen Hurts, I've never been so proud for one single person to prove me wrong on the field, and he's done that. And I'll always have that. If I ever meet him, I'll apologize straight away, and I'm sure there are a lot of people who would apologize to him. But as he's kind of put on his shoulder and explained to us this week, it doesn't matter what we thought of him. It only mattered about what he was going to do. Maybe the quote of the century: I had a purpose before anyone had an opinion. Goodness gracious, you're ever going to put a tattoo on there? That is something you can really get behind if you're feeling down or you're going through some adversity, people doubting you. Jalen Hurts is someone to look at. And I really do expect this Super Bowl to be fantastic and historic. And I think it will be a little bit of a sprinkle, the fact that we have two black quarterbacks. I think it's very profound, and I think it's great. But when it's all said and done, I think we'll look back at this, and going forward, it will be the start of a run, with guys like Lamar Jackson and plenty others that are ready to kind of step in and carry this torch for the African-American quarterbacks in the league. But moving on to the betting side of things. Now, obviously, the Super Bowl is the most bet game of the year. I believe I saw 16 billion with a B, folks, is going to be bet on this football game, and it won't be point spread. Well, it won't all be point spread and over under and money line, things like that. Obviously, the craziest prop bets you can find will be happening in this one. We, of course, do have the, heads or tails. That's the one thing. Personally, full disclosure, I'm only making 2 bets this year. I'm betting heads or tails just because it's my tradition. And I'd like to know, technically before the game starts, whether I'm on, on a good track or not. And then I'm putting money on the Chiefs, but that's not because I think the Chiefs are going to win. I think it's, what I've talked about pretty much since we've been doing this show. I call it the emotional hedge. If the Chiefs do go out and get the win, I'd like to at least make a little bit of money off of my misery. So the emotional hedge there, I'll take the Chiefs, but I am going to go tails because look, tails never fails. Obviously those numbers minus 103, they're essentially a coin flip, right? Pay your little dollar or cents to the VIG and see if you win in that one. Plenty of anytime scores that I would definitely keep an eye on if I was actually going to bet on this game. I think Devontae Smith at plus 160 and AJ Brown at plus 120. I really like that. Travis Kelce's minus 120. He's essentially the favorite to be an anytime touchdown scorer. I expect him to score a touchdown. I just don't like the value. Jalen Hurts at minus 110 is a nice bet as well. But once again, I don't like anytime touchdown scores to start with a minus. I just don't like the value there. Kenneth Gainwell is up around plus 800, depending on where you look. Keep an eye on that. The Eagles run a very deep rotation at running back, and Kenneth Gainwell has kind of been that guy. I love Boston Scott, but there are certain situations for Boston Scott at the end of drives. He just can't be the guy to kind of power it in from the 2-yard line. His size. I love Boston, like I said, but, sometimes it's difficult for a 5'8" guy to pick up 2 yards of the goal line. It's very, very difficult against those big uglies up front for the defense. Kenneth Gainwell, a little bit bigger, a little stronger. I think he's been kind of that backup red zone or goal line situation if Miles Sanders needs a blow on the sideline. So Kenneth Gainwell, anytime touchdown score, keep an eye on that. You can go find any of them. I think Rihanna has over under 9 songs, 9.5 songs. I will always kind of caution people to bet on those kind of weird ones because you don't want Vegas or Bovada or MyBookie or whoever it is to essentially be the one determining whether or not that was a song or a medley. And all of a sudden that over that you think she sung 10 or 11 songs, actually those 2 were medleys, even though they had 3 songs at whatever it is. And all of a sudden you get hit with the under. A few years ago, I think it was Shakira, and they had an over under on the twerk. And I remember on the podcast saying, look, there's going to be a situation where somebody thinks that was a twerk, but it actually wasn't. And sure enough, that did come out. So just be careful with those weird ones on that. But in terms of on the field prop bets, I would steer you in the direction of the Eagles wide receiving core or Kenneth Gainwell to be an anytime touchdown scorer. Isaiah Pacheco is not a terrible bet as well, but I just the Eagles defense, especially down near the goal line, is very difficult to penetrate. So we'll see how that goes. But moving on to the actual game line, over under money line side of things, they are sitting at the moment, Kansas City plus 105, Philadelphia minus 125 on the money line side of things. The Eagles are a 1.5 favorite. The over under is 51. I want to start with the easy one first. I think we're going over 51. And the reason that is, and I'm actually going to check the numbers just to get everything because these numbers are so volatile. We do have, one second. So I vamp for a moment. And of course, they are not showing the odds. How about that? The day before the Super Bowl. But there we are. Yes. So the Eagles, still minus 120. Kansas City Chiefs, even money on the money line, still 1.5 point favorites for the Eagles, and the over under at 51. I really do like the over here. I think we're going to see points being scored. The Eagles defense is really good, but I just think Patrick Mahomes is that one guy that can beat the Eagles all week or the last 2 weeks. Everyone kind of been telling me, you guys got this. It's, you're the better team than the Chiefs, blah, blah, blah. And they're right. But Patrick Mahomes is good enough to beat you by himself, or, obviously he'll need others, but he's good enough to go out there and do some things that you just shake your head and go, he was unbeatable today. That's very possible in this situation. So I am a little cautious on that, but I really do like the over here. I think the Eagles are going to get theirs, and I think the Chiefs are going to put points up as well. I think the only kind of thing that pulls this back is two factors: inability to score touchdowns, so you have to settle for field goals, and nerves. Patrick Mahomes obviously been there, things like that, but it is still the Super Bowl. You're still going to have butterflies no matter what. And then obviously most of the Eagles are going to, it's their first Super Bowl. So we could see nerves early on that will kind of keep this closer to 51, but I really do think we're going to be in the 60s, folks. I think both teams are going to put up 30 points. So I really like the over here. On the other side of things, the spread, I'm not going to touch it. -1.5. I'm not touching anything, to be honest. But if I were betting on this game, I wouldn't be touching the spread. This is all money line one way or the other. And at the end of the day, I just think the Eagles are the better overall football team. Can Patrick Mahomes do his thing and kind of take over and win the Super Bowl on his back? 100%. That very well could happen. I just think more than likely the Eagles will do enough to get the job done. This isn't going to be a 17-14 game, something like that. If it is, Eagles may be in trouble in that situation. This is going to be a shootout, I believe, and I think the Eagles are perfectly positioned to do that. They can beat you on the ground, they can beat you through the air, and they can beat you multiple ways on the ground and through the air. They have so many weapons. Obviously, Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, those are the three better players or coaches, whatever you want to say. Everywhere else, the Eagles have an advantage. If you want to throw Harrison Butker in there as well as the place kicker, fine, you can do that. But I don't think the kicker is going to have as big of an impact on this one. But those four positions, if you will, the Chiefs have a better understanding. But the other 18 to 20, give the advantage to the Eagles. I think they are the better football team top to bottom. I think they win this game. I really liked a 31-27 final, 31-24 in that area. Probably going to be up higher, maybe 34-31, 37-34. I know there was something online on Google showing the Eagles had actually won the Super Bowl 37-34. Take that with what you want. Photoshop is very prevalent, folks. You can believe whatever you want, but I don't believe Google knows the Super Bowl score before it's already happened. Once again, it kind of goes back to the NFL being scripted. If the NFL is scripted, someone needs to get every single one of these NFL athletes behind the big screen because they are the greatest actors in the world. Leonardo DiCaprio couldn't hold these guys jocks if these guys were actually, if this stuff was actually scripted. So I expect the Eagles to win. It very well could be 37-34, and that opens up a whole nother can of worms, but I don't think this is predetermined, folks, and you take that with what you will. But I do expect the Eagles to win in an absolute shootout, and I think it's going to be a classic, very similar to what we saw when the Eagles won their first Super Bowl 5 years ago over Tom Brady taking down the New England Patriots. But so give me, if I was betting on this game, once again, I'm not, but the Eagles, I would like them on the money line and over 51.5. I maybe same game parlay them just to get a little extra oomph because the Eagles at -125, not a ton of value there unless you're going, into the high double or low triple digits plus on that side of things. So we shall see. For me, obviously, I don't have to explain how excited I am. My final thoughts, obviously, look, I wouldn't be an Eagles fan if it wasn't for my father, and this will be the first Super Bowl, without my dad. And I know he's going to be watching. He's probably going to have the best seat in the house. He'll be right above, watching kind of that drone style, enjoying it. And hopefully we'll have a moment to kind of enjoy the celebrations because I do expect the Eagles to win. But, if they don't win, I'm not a big fan of moral victories. I think it's all or nothing. It's the Ricky Bobby thing, right? If you're not first, you're last. You have a goal when the season starts. Win the Super Bowl. If you don't reach that goal, you failed, period. You might not like it. It may hurt your feelings, but it is all or nothing. You win or you lose. All second place is first loser. But going forward, if for whatever reason the Eagles were to drop this one, I do know the future is bright. I wouldn't feel good. It would take me a few weeks to probably, realize that, what, that was a lot of fun. It wasn't, what we wanted, but I do expect the Eagles to get the job done. And hopefully the next time we'll be talking, I'll be decked out in Eagles championship gear. But with that, thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the NFL Weekly, the Super Bowl preview presented by the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench, but we are first. Thank you all so much for listening. Time for y'all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. Go Birds. Take care.